Hey everyone, I am here with Jordan Lage. I met Jordan Lage on the Awards Daily message board, and he happens to be very experienced in theater. He is co-founded the Atlantic Theater Company in New York, and is currently performing in a play in Houston called Camp David by Lawrence Wright. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Orrin.
So, as an expert in acting, we are going to count down our 12 favorite performances of 2019. Why don't you start with 12, 10, and 9, and 8, I guess.
All right, let's do it. I was really fond of Roman Griffin Davis and Thomasin McKenzie and JoJo Rabbit as my 12. I just thought they were really solid young actors. Really impressive to see such terrific performances from youngsters like that, and they went a long way toward making that film one of the more enjoyable films I saw last year.
Okay, and what else do you, I agree that it was just a very well-rounded cast. I enjoyed the sort of, I enjoyed when they danced at the end. I remember that very last scene. How often do you think, and Thomasin McKenzie was also really good, and she had to carry the entire movie and leave no trace. I'm not sure if you saw that. So, it does seem like she is comfortable with different directors, different movie settings. Roman's much younger. Do you think 10-year-old or 11-year-old actors are capable of achieving their kind of full potential?
Hey man, I remember Taylor O'Neill. Are you kidding? In Paper Moon.
Yeah.
Oh sure. And then there's Justin Henry from Kramer vs. Kramer, and Quinn Cummings from The Goodbye Girl, and Carrie Guffey from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They're out there, and it's just up to the director to find them. Fantastic.
Okay, and okay, so if we're gonna do every two, my 12 is Eddie Murphy from Dolemite Is My Name, because I'm of a generation that might not know Eddie Murphy's best work, and this is a guy who is really savoring and enjoying the role, and it seems like it's very custom made for him. The kind of energy and enthusiasm that Eddie Murphy brought to whatever he did in Saturday Night Live is, you could see it in trying to create a living for himself, this character. A biography pick like this is about seeing how a man's mind ticks, and this is what that is. And my 11 pick was, I really liked Ian McKellen in Good Liar. He does a lot of popular roles. Everyone talks about how great of an actor he is, but I only know him in like X-Men, and this is a role where he displays a lot of subtlety. It's a movie, The Good Liar by Bill Condon. It's a lot of cat and mouse, kind of two people kind of onto each other in a con, and it revolves on like not revealing all the information about it. So he's very mischievous in it.
I've always been a McKellen fan. I've seen him in a lot of theater. I remember I saw him in the original Broadway production of Amadeus back in may have been the late 70s. And
wow.
Just a few years ago with Patrick Stewart, they did a sort of a double bill of Harold Pinter's No Man's Land and Beckett's Waiting for Godot. And look, he's a world treasure, Ian McKellen. So it's always a treat to see him live or in film. So
yeah, he does a lot of. He's best known for two popular roles, so this is kind of interesting. He has a lot of credits under Bill Condon and Bryan Singer, like The Apt Pupil and stuff, where he's doing offbeat work, but it's overshadowed, I think, to most of the public. What is your? Let's try to what's your 10, 9, and 8, I guess, or?
Okay, so I'm with you on Eddie Murphy. I just thought he was wonderful in Dolemite Is My Name, but I'm gonna cheat a little bit. So I'm gonna lump together the other two fantastic performances for that film, which were also Davine Joy Randolph, who was a revelation to me. I'd never seen her before, and I probably bet that not many people had. But I think she's got a terrific career ahead of her. She just brought a lot of pathos and humor to her role, and I thought she was spot on in that. And then Wesley Snipes, it was great to see him come back. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and he was just a fabulous comic turn, in support of Murphy. So all those three for Dolemite Is My Name. And then beyond that, next I had Charlize Theron, in Bombshell, and just rack up another one for her. She turned
I think that in the case of Davine Joy Randolph, I think there was a case where she was getting Oscar buzz, but only after I saw the movie, a couple months after, and I was like, maybe I need to rewatch the film to see what was so great about her. And that was kind of interesting. For some reason, I just didn't notice her, and sometimes you have to maybe watch it a second time to notice someone.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I was just really taken by her stillness and her truthfulness, and that scene she has when she first meets Murphy at the bar, just really struck me. Yeah.
So, for 10, I have Margaret Qualley. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She is definitely not the most in terms of screen time, but she's very much in sync with the kind of vibe that Quentin Tarantino tried to create. She's very free and open with herself. I love when that little snippet of a scene where she dances and tries to pick up that hitchhiker and cheers and does a little dance that she got Brad Pitt to give her a ride. When she's around she shifts mood-wise very fast when she's around the brainwashed Manson family is what they're called.
Ranch, yeah.
So, I think
she's also very good in the TV series Falsey Bird, where she plays Anne Reinking.
Yeah, her rise might remind me of Margot Robbie, where she was in a little bit of the Wolf of Wall Street, and then a couple years later, she's kind of in everything. And I imagine Margaret Qualley's going to be like that. I also have Laura Dern in The Marriage Story. I think a lot of people like her screen persona, her personality. They love the fact that she's the daughter of two great underrated actors, which led to a great Oscar moment. But the performance itself is definitely worthy. She's kind of mean. She's kind of a bit amoral. She's trying too hard to rope in a client, and that side of her is really kind of not something that's discussed so much because it wasn't the main point, but it kind of sneaks in there, and I like that about her performance.
Yeah.
I also have Daniel Craig from Knives Out. This is a performance that's not designed to get an Oscar. It's designed to be a scene stealer. It's designed to be a performance that adds a glimmer of comicness, and it's just idiosyncratic. It's an idiosyncratic character in sort of a pop art kind of thing, and I loved it. Did you see Knives Out and Daniel Craig?
Yeah, and I've been remiss, but hey, I've been busy working on this play down here, but I'm definitely going to catch it because I've heard great things about it, and I love Daniel Craig, so really looking forward to April when No Time to Die comes out. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, he's probably the most, although my understanding is Timothy Dalton's also classically trained, but he's probably the most proficient of an actor of the Bond actors, I think, as far as I know.
Yeah, you might get some arguments there, about Sean Connery and...
Was Sean Connery classically trained, or did he just kind of fall into the role?
Great, but he certainly went on to do plenty of other stuff besides the Bond films, and he won the Oscar for The Untouchables, so... They're all in good company.
I could probably see Daniel Craig winning an Oscar if he took on, in the right year, in the right role. As opposed to Sean Connery, I didn't see The Untouchables, or I wasn't sure he...
David Mamet, screenplay, De Palma.
All right, so what's 7 and 6 for you?
Okay, well, let's see. I'm going to go down a little bit further, back up just a little bit. Ford versus Ferrarri, both the male leads, Christian Bale, Matt Damon, fabulous, entertaining movie, and those guys just get better and better as they get older, and they're both just fantastic, and they play off each other really well. The supporting actors in Ford versus Ferrari are terrific as well. John Bernthal, Tracy Letts, Josh Lucas, fabulous.
Is it? I have not seen that. Ford vs. Ferrari is the only. I think it's the only one of the nominees I didn't see. It's in a 24-hour frame, right? Is that what it is, or 20? I don't even remember.
No, it takes place over a period of a couple of years, a few years.
Oh, okay. I had so for number 7, it's another one like Margaret Qualley where it's a small role. I put Ray Liotta of Marriage Story. For me, it was like Laura Dern's kind of amorality times 2. It was like double, like the sort of, and I was so interested in how it felt so intrinsic to his character, like he was always that way. Like I could see Laura Dern as sort of arc, but I was more curious about when did when did that character get so divorced from like doing good for people? You know,
Right.
which I think is always fascinating.
Liotta bounced back with a nice, even though it was a supporting role, it was a plum role for him.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen him in a long time.
Very curious career arc there. And number 6, it's a film that a lot of people panned. Natalie Portman in Lucy in the Sky. She plays an astronaut who went to space and then couldn't meet the high of it again, so she engages in a lot of reckless behavior. It's like a Darren Aronofsky film. I mean, she was in Black Swan too, so it felt like the same kind of thing, but it was definitely an arc to her. And she has a really kind of great Southern accent, like a lower class background. It's a lot of depth to the character. All right, so going into the top five, what do you have for the 5?
Okay. Well, I didn't see that one with Portman, but I'll check it out on your recommendation. So I want to point out one of the actors in Parasite. It's a fantastic cast, of course, and they won the SAG Award for Ensemble, and of course it was the semi-surprise winner of the Best Picture Oscar. But I'm going to single out one actor in the film, and it's actually an actress, Park So-dam, who plays the younger sister. She just had a preternatural self-assuredness that really made me sit up and take note of her in that film. I mean, everybody's great in that, but her, she was just so self-assured and so just kind of scarily present. You know, it's a really remarkable performance, and it's the first time I've ever seen her or anything, and then I looked her up on Wikipedia, and she has done a ton of work considering how young she is. She's only 28, but we'll see a lot more of her in the years to come for sure. She's fabulous.
Well, I also on Parasite, my number 5 actor is Kang-ho, who played the patriarch of the lower class family. The wonderful thing is you don't know much about him for the first. You don't know anything about his emotional backstory, what he wants or needs, or what drives him for the first, maybe third or half of the movie, and then it really starts to come through in the last third, and there's a lot in his facial expressions and everything, So yeah, I think that was amazing, and I think your pick in terms of the.
I'm sorry. If I had to single out 2 of the performances, it's tough to do. It would be both him and Park So-dam from Parasite.
I think Park So-dam is one where I know that if I watched it a second time, I would probably pick up a lot more subtleties of that performance. Have you ever have a performance where it's where you know that like in the last part of the play or something that you're gonna get much more emotional, and that you have to just kind of like not do much just to keep the audience not looking at your character or something, like misdirecting away from your character? Or...
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of doing that in this play. I mean, I play Menachem Begin, who was the Prime Minister of Israel from 1977 to 1983. So I play him in this play, and the journey he goes on in this particular play, Camp David, is somewhat like that. There's a very cathartic moment at the end of the play for the character, and it's quite a journey to do every night.
Okay, what is your number 4 pick?
Okay, so I have Antonio Banderas in Almodovar's Pain and Glory. It's been great to see Banderas, had this 40-year career as this stellar actor in Spain, having worked with Almodovar in the beginning as a young, really handsome, kind of guy. He grows up into this sort of, macho superstar when he gets to Hollywood. But here he is in Pain and Glory, and he's sort of a doppelganger for Almodovar himself. And he has the look of a character that's been lived in and has gone through a lot and is now sort of, struggling to reclaim his artistic glory. And it's just a really very, very moving portrait of a director, film director, who is struggling to overcome a sort of an artistic dry spell, as well as overcome some health issues that are causing him a lot of pain. It's a fantastic performance and a really beautiful film. Do you think
Wait, do you think? And I think a lot of Antonio Banderas's the audience for Antonio Banderas in Spain is way different than his audience in America, which probably knows him for The Mask of Zorro, maybe The Latin Lover, maybe Philadelphia, but that's definitely a. You're right. It is kind of him and Almodovar. He's very elevated. I think that's because that's more his home country or his home language, or.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's a superstar in Spain, of course, as is, people like Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem and all that.
Yeah.
But I think if American audiences are willing to give Banderas a look-see, in his native tongue, then Pain and Glory is the one to go to.
Alright, so now my number 4 pick is Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit. Taiki Waititi said that he based this on his single mom and dedicated this to single moms kind of around the world. And it's definitely an ode to a woman who has to do the arduous task of raising a difficult boy, and she takes it with a lot of, finesse, a lot of, teasing him, a lot of spirit, a lot, and I love, it has a lot of challenges. I never doubted her accent, I never doubted, there's some physicality, she's dancing, she's pretending to be her father, her husband in one scene, so I thought it was just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, she's fantastic, and of the two great roles she had last year, my preference is for her performance in Jojo Rabbit. I'm with you there. I thought she really had it under control in that one. I have to believe that Taika Waititi helped her, Waikiki, I'm sorry, helped her out with that. So.
All right, what's your number 3?
So I'm gonna go with Renee Zellweger in Judy. Again, totally inhabits the role, much like Banderas does in Pain and Glory, and I was really, really moved. My wife and I were watching that movie, and we were surprised at how taken we were with the movie and with Zellweger's performance. She seems to have gotten a lot of blowback, I think, after having won almost every single Best Actress award last year, and especially the Oscar, but I think any criticism of hers is really unfair. I think she fully deserved all the accolades she garnered last year.
I guess I'm probably in the blowback camp a little bit, only because I think that she was outshone by the younger version of her, played by Darcy Shaw, and that was a more interesting story. The center of where the scandal of MGM abusing her and feeding her all these pills, that was the more interesting story, and I felt like the film put a laser focused on the wrong thing, and it also, and I guess it was an impression, but again, Darcy Shaw, I don't know, I think it was just more like the wrong part of the movie was focused on and the wrong performance was focused on for me.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I thought that part of that story was interesting, but for me, I just thought the meat of it was, Garland, and as she is really going on the descent in the latter part of her career.
Yeah, and then it was also, to me, it was also like, this was an excuse to shoe in a lot of full musical numbers. That was more a criticism of the movie than her, but I just wanted to tune out of the musical numbers because I felt it was such an emphasis on musical numbers that weren't even staged in any interesting way. It was just, just her standing there singing.
Yeah. I just respectfully disagree.
Yep, alright, so what are we on, 3? I have Jonathan Pryce as the Two Popes. I thought Two Popes was a tour de force in acting. I think Jonathan Pryce, I think his accent was a little bit less authentic, but you sometimes want to be inspired, and, Pope Francis, it's fair enough, I think he's inspirational, but, the actor inspired me too. So I think Jonathan Pryce for me was pretty revelatory. And honestly, I've actually kind of watched that actor for a long time. I grew up on like Evita and some of his other roles, and like Glengarry Glen Ross. He's like in it, which and I don't know, just some of that stuff. And I was like, I never thought he'd ever get an an Oscar nomination. So that was kind of cool.
Well, it's fabulous. Look, I've known, I've seen him for years, going back to Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
Oh, yeah, he's great in that.
last year's The Wife with Glenn Close.
Yeah.
He's a great foil for her, and I thought she turned in the best performance of the year last year. But it's poor Glenn Close. Always a bridesmaid. But I agree with you. I think Bryce is fantastic. How's Hopkins? Because he's another.
We haven't gotten up there, but yeah, of course.
Okay.
All right, what's your number 3?
No, I'm looking forward to it. DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think he'd really come into his own, certainly since The Revenant, as a fantastic actor. When he was young, my feeling always was, he's a little too young to be given these roles. Just wait 20 years, and he will have such a body of work behind him that he can't help but get better, and it certainly has been the case. And I just thought he was stellar in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That scene where he is so angry at himself for blowing the lines in the Western, and he goes back to his trailer and just starts tearing the place apart and working himself, is just the height of comic genius to me.
Yeah, I don't place him as high only because I don't think it's a new high watermark for him. I think he was really great in Departed and Aviator and Blood Diamond and Catch Me If You Can, so I feel like, maybe not Catch Me If You Can, but around the time of Blood Diamond and Departed and Inception, I even saw him in a film with Russell Crowe, so I've seen him like this for a while. But yeah, he's DiCaprio doing DiCaprio, which is being the best actor in his age range, He's the best in his generation, arguably, My number 2 is George McKay of the film 1917.
Okay.
Because the film relies on this sense of it's a film that he kind of has this existential thing where he doesn't have a purpose, and then he has a purpose, and the purpose overrides everything else, and then he's exhausted. And the film definitely conveys that sense of exhaustion. Like minute by minute, you could see him getting warier and warier.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, being an actor, I know how difficult it is to pull off. I'll say this. I can appreciate how difficult it is to pull off a performance like that, and definitely I tip my hat to him. He was excellent, as was the other actor who played his buddy in that, and I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he didn't. Well, we won't spoil what happens to him, but he didn't have as much screen time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So my number 2 is
Yeah.
Awkwafina in Farewell.
Awkwafina in Farewell, yeah.
Yeah, I found profoundly moving, and for me, I thought it was a great career decision for her after the last year, or I think 2018's Crazy Rich Asians, which she played kind of this kooky comic character. For her to go from that and then her very next role being The Farewell, which I thought was a kind of a brilliant career move, and she delivered, man. She is just fabulous. Very, she has that heart-wrenching monologue to her mother, in the living room, talking about her conflict between her emotions and trying to honor the tradition of her family and the Chinese tradition of not allowing family member who's dying of cancer to let them know that they're dying. She turns in a fabulous performance, and I was really disappointed that she did not get at least an Oscar nomination, if not the entire bauble for it. I thought she was fabulous.
Yeah, so I've actually been watching her show, Awkwafina's Orrin from Queens on Comedy Central, and I'm really appreciating her as a comic actress. I'm glad that you chose a comic actress so high. She has such comic gifts. I think the movie might have been better if she was allowed to use her comic gifts, because she really can be like Steve Martin or, whoever levels of funny if she can run free a little bit. I do have to say that I watched this on an airplane, so I might need to give Awkwafina The Farewell a rewatch to see if it really utilizes Awkwafina as well. And my number 1 pick is Anthony Hopkins from The Pope. The Two Popes. Yeah, this is a film that definitely, Anthony Hopkins is known for being that murderous Hannibal Lecter, but this is a film that really requires him to have a lot of subtlety. The Two Popes is 2 people going toe-to-toe, airing out their differences, but also seeing moments of agreement and just moving to a lot of different like moods and tones in their meetings. They're playing like a little bit of political mental chess with each other, and I think that sounds real. It looks really hard, and also the Anthony Hopkins character deals with aging and a lot more introspection and self-reflection, and I think he has a way with dialogue. I'm not sure, but I just feel like Anthony Hopkins really has a way of taking dialogue and making it work.
Right. Well, I don't disagree with that. I can't wait to see that movie. But Hopkins is just going all the way back to The Lion in Winter, which is his film debut. I mean, this guy, for my money, he is one of the probably top 3 greatest actors of all time. And
whoa.
I'm not leaving out people like Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, Cary Grant.
Well, yeah.
De Niro, Pacino, Brando, blah 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 blah. How many times have we seen Anthony Hopkins deliver the goods in film after film after film? I mean, people are partial to Hannibal Lecter, but I say look at Oliver Stone's Nixon, look at Hopkins' performance in Richard Attenborough's Bridge Too Far. Look at his performance in Shadowlands or Names of the Day, Howard's End. The list goes on and on and on. It's unbelievable.
That is, yeah, and it has been over 20 years since he was nominated, so it felt like he wasn't going to be recognized anymore, so I'm glad that, there was a new dose of recognition for him. So what is your number 1 pick?
All right, so my number 1 pick, again, I'm cheating a little bit, but I'm going to choose De Niro for The Irishman.
Oh, okay.
I just found his performance to be profound on a level that I hadn't seen him be that way in a couple of decades. And we all remember his great films in the 70s and 80s, his other collaborations with Scorsese. But he just turns in this performance that is so richly nuanced and complex and guilt-ridden and just brimming with emotion and beautifully but subtly underplayed. The phone call he has to Laura White towards the end of the film, and I'm not going to give it away what it's about. I think it's just a masterclass in acting, and I think that the awards people, whoever they are, last year just overlooked him because maybe they take him for granted, but he delivers one of his finest performances, and I would be remiss, Orrin, if I did not include in that kit and caboodle Pacino and Pesci.
And Keitel, or is he not part of the whole thing?
Keitel is in it, sure, but he has a very small part.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's the 3 of them that make The Irishman, I think, a film that people are going to eventually come back around to and regard as one of Scorsese's best.
Yeah, it's a very ambitious. And he has such a diverse filmography that there's a lot to appreciate. Fun fact, actually, Robert De Niro has 11 Best Picture nominee appearances, which is more than any actor alive and more than any actor I've found so far.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely he's been in a lot of winning movies. I have 9 seconds left, so it looks like we arrived at the end point. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Hey, my pleasure.